Welcome to Locked On Heat. Will the Heat do anything before the trade deadline? We'll talk about it next.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang and become an everydayer. That means subscribing, tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, and signing up for the Everydayer Club with the link in the show notes. If you use the term deadline, you'll get your first month for free if you use that term deadline between now and the February 5th trade deadline. So you got to do that soon. We are sharing all the latest intel there with our Subtext community members, our Everydayer Club. We're able to share more intel there and faster than we are by doing and producing a whole show here. But it's 5:11 p.m. Eastern, David. 22 hours until the NBA trade deadline. I'm Wes Goldberg. This is David Ramil, both credentialed Heat Media members. Forgot that part of the intro.
Yeah.
22 hours before the trade deadline. We've got a lot of moves happening. Anthony Davis is on the Wizards now. James Harden is on the Cavaliers. It's a flurry of action here. You've got the Hornets doing random stuff. Meanwhile, the Miami Heat have been quiet. Very, very quiet. Too quiet. Maybe. Yeah. And tough to know whether or not this is the quiet before a potential storm / blockbuster type of move, or if this is just going to be quiet until the deadline comes and it's still quiet and nothing ultimately happens. And I do think that right now, bubbling among the fan base is a fear of this Heat team not doing anything, which would, I think, be
the fan base. Some media members.
Sure. Some on this very podcast, perhaps.
Yeah. Some wearing Superman branded hoodies. I don't know, for those viewers on YouTube. I texted you earlier. I just seeing the little activities here and there, the reports coming in. It's like, oh, this player gets moved. Even Chris Paul going to the Toronto Raptors, Kobe White going to the Charlotte Hornets, Nick Vucevic going to the Celtics. Like, all these things have been happening. Maybe it's just reshuffling deck chairs. I don't know how impactful Anthony Davis is going to be with the Washington Wizards, although if healthy, obviously he's still a very good player. But you're looking at Miami and this idea that they're going to stand pat, where they've stood pat in so many other seasons, is kind of maddening. And so I'd like to think it's all because, as you said, maybe it's gearing up to something. But if 301 rolls around tomorrow and nothing's happening, don't let your kids near the podcast. That's all I gotta say. It's gonna be tirade filled, and there might be some profanity exchanged.
So there is the Ja Morant part of this that I want to talk about here in a second. Everything right now is about Giannis, if you're the Miami Heat, and so the fact that nothing has been done makes a little bit of sense here, right? Like, if the Heat are going to trade for Giannis, it kind of makes sense that nothing has happened so far. Right? Yeah. Given that Giannis has not been traded so far. So, you do have Minnesota doing the Mike Conley stuff here and there, but Minnesota was operating over the second April. Like, they had to do stuff in order to even be in striking distance of getting Giannis, right? Like, they had a lot more work to do to get to where, some of these other teams are in regards to Giannis. We also don't know that Giannis is going to get traded, right? You have the Milwaukee Bucks positioning themselves and posturing as, hey, we might not do anything about that. And by the way, maybe they don't. I think it's 50-50 at this point. And as we talked about on yesterday's show, like, why do anything now if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Like, there is no rush. Take it to the deadline. Just get the best deal you possibly can. You're trading the first or second best player in franchise history as Milwaukee Bucks. Like, you want to make sure you get this right. So take your time with it. Still, though, the Heat have been even more tight-lipped than they usually are. We're just hearing nothing. Like, we do have this little bitty stuff about Ja Morant that we'll get to here in a second, but in terms of Giannis, it makes sense if you're queasy, because that's, like, you do see Minnesota trying to position themselves. You do see Cleveland right now doing a big, like, swing on James Harden. And I just think right now, maybe I'm wrong, David. Tell me if I'm wrong. Are Heat fans more starved for Giannis or just more starved for a swing of any kind whatsoever at this point?
Oh, that's a tough one. Because I think even some fans are still divided on the idea of adding Giannis, not just because of
Hmm.
his fit in Miami, but also his age and his injury history. So there's concerns about adding a player, even one of Giannis's caliber. So I think they'd like a move, but it almost feels like it's the right move. And we get this in terms of feedback from our commenters or even people that we talk to on the street. And just the idea is that if you're going to make a trade for a superstar, they'd like it to be a younger superstar, maybe a guy like Anthony Edwards. Well, Ant's not on the move. He's not going anywhere. That's not going to happen. And there's no other superstar available. And right now, the best option, and it's a damn good one, is Giannis. So I think to answer your question, I think they're more starved for a move of a superstar rather than the move for Giannis. I don't think they want to see the peripheral move unless it's going to lead to that superstar move. Like we hear that all the time too. Oh, trade Wiggs for this, trade Powell for this, trade Hero for whomever, even trade Bam. So there's the idea that they have to make some kind of a move, but ideally it would be either for two things: a younger superstar or a total rebuild. And I think the Heat aren't interested in one option, the latter option, and they're not capable of making the former option. So right now, it's either Giannis or nothing, I'd say.
It does feel like Giannis or bust. There are there's this new report about rumors around the league circulating that the Heat might be positioning to not only get Giannis, but Giannis and Ja Morant,
Oh,
right? And talk about a big swing, David. That is the big swing. It's something that we've talked about here as more of a concept than a
sure.
report over the last couple of weeks. And I want to be clear, that report that kind of made the rounds this morning on social media, there's no indication that that's coming from the Miami Heat. If anything, that's coming. I think even the report said that that's sort of coming from rival executives who are wondering, could the Heat just do both?
Right.
Peek behind the curtain here. Rival executives talk a lot like we do and people in the YouTube comments do. It's very similar type of conversations of, boy, I haven't heard much from Miami. Have you? No. What if they did both? Could they actually figure it out where they do both? And I'll remind people, there was this conversation in league circles a couple years ago about whether or not the Heat could get Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal, right?
Right.
And of course, the Heat ended up with neither of them. So more out of their choice in terms of not getting Bradley Beal. They just weren't interested in him because he wouldn't waive his no trade clause. And then the Damian Lillard thing, we all remember what happened there. But I'm not saying that it's impossible to get both, especially with the latest reporting indicating that maybe after this Jaren Jackson Jr. trade, that the Grizzlies' price for Ja Morant is basically like, just if you want him, you can have him at this point for whatever.
Sure. Right.
I'm not ruling it out. I also don't. We could weigh the pros and cons if we want on what that kind of looks like and what that means. But I just I get when I saw that report, my thought wasn't really going to Giannis and Ja together with Bam. It was more of, oh, this is what happens when we're just trying to fill the void of silence that is emanating from the Miami Heat.
Well, I mean, there's a logic behind it too. We already know Miami's interest in adding a superstar, and so you could say they're looking to add Giannis, and then Ja Morant. Again, while the value is diminished, I think there's the hope that he still has superstar potential there, that he can still play the way he did a few years ago when he was one of the top 10 players in the league. And so I think there's also this idea that as a player and as a person, even off the court and everything else that he's kind of gone through, that maybe Miami might rehabilitate, might save his career because it was such a promising career. And he does mean so much to that Grizzlies fan base.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's available. And they trade Jaren Jackson Jr. And now it's clear what they're rebuilding. I mean, Memphis, the move for Jackson netted them such a trove of draft picks that they're on par with the Oklahoma City Thunder for having as many picks as possible. And I think the Thunder might even have less now that they've made other moves to acquire Jared McCain from the Philadelphia 76ers. So, the Grizzlies are positioning themselves for a full rebuild. Morant is not a part of that. It's time for them to part ways. And so the idea that he'd be available to Miami makes a lot of sense. Now, it's just the idea of, for a team that has traditionally stood pat or been standing pat for a number of trade deadlines in the past, to make an incredible reshuffling of the roster to that degree, that's a little hard to conceive. Like the idea of adding Giannis and adding Ja while still keeping Bam and maybe Norm Powell and who knows, maybe some of the other younger players on this roster. That would be an incredible coup, a master class for Pat Riley if he's able to pull that off. And it just the degree of difficulty there is so high that it's almost hard to kind of wrap your mind around.
But that is what Pat Riley does, doesn't it? Like that is the classic
absolutely
Riley
is.
move. It's
It absolutely
never
is.
the simple thing. It's we're
Right.
overhauling all of it. We're making the 6-7
Right.
team trade where we end up with Jason Williams and Gary Payton and Antoine Walker
Right.
and just a whole new supporting cast around Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal. We're sending Hassan Whiteside to Portland and somehow getting the assets that we need to get Jimmy Butler out of that. This is how the Heat do it. They can't do it the easy way. They've always done it the hard way. To every fault of their own, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of just as we're talking it through now. It's like the idea that it's so quiet because what happens next is just such a complete obliteration of everything that you're just kind of left holding your phone shell shocked, like you don't even know what you just read from the tweet
Right.
here, because it kind of feels like it's leading up to that. Like we hear nothing, and I don't mean to get anybody's hopes up because mine are right there with you, everybody else's, in the sense that it's just going to be this incredible multi-team. I don't even know what to call it.
And what are the odds? What are the odds, David, that it's not delivered via Shams or Stein or Amick,
the Heat press release,
but an email, just an email? The Miami Heat on Thursday have executed the following trade.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what it'll be. That's just like Victor Oladipo, right? Like how many times did they do that with Oladipo? Various times.
We'll see the video montage thanking Tyler for his time in Miami before we hear from Shams.
We're like, wait a minute, where did that video come from? That's crazy.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, Tyler. We're like, thank you for what? Wait, what? Look, we don't know if the Heat actually want Ja Morant. That's another big part of this. We do know, though, at least according to the reports, that Ja Morant wants Miami. We'll talk about that next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person just stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, location, whatever you're looking for. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want somebody who can help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. And that's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through these mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 new hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Today's episode is also brought to you by TurboTax Full Service. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and work to get you every possible deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver, and it gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in, if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Locked On Heat. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Make sure you tune in with us all week long. We're just releasing podcasts left and right, latest updates, everything you got. Anything happens, you know we're going to be here right away with breaking news. Hopefully something happens. I mentioned the Ja Morant report before. This is from Kelly Iko of Yahoo Sports. He says, with 24 hours to go until the trade deadline, Grizzlies guard Ja Morant and his camp are disinterested with the idea of playing in Sacramento, with a strong preference for Miami or Minnesota in the event he is dealt, sources tell Yahoo Sports. These are the three teams that keep getting mentioned in terms of Ja Morant. It's Miami, it's Minnesota, it's Sacramento. Morant has made it very clear that he's not interested in playing for the Sacramento Kings. Not sure I can blame him. I think I think the jury's still out about how interested these teams are in Ja Morant. There seems to be a lot of positioning on Ja Morant's camp in terms of trying to navigate his way to a preferred destination. I don't know that he's going to even have that luxury at this point. I want to make that very clear. Ja Morant isn't necessarily in position to have a list of demands right now. But he's clearly trying to make his way to Miami. I think I should probably rephrase that. If he could pick any team in the league to play for that's sort of been mentioned here, it would be Miami. I think that much has been clear through the reporting.
Yeah.
Unclear right now if the Miami Heat are interested in Ja Morant. I'm gonna tell you my read on this, and this is from both talking to people and reading between the tea leaves and reading obviously the reporting around this situation.
Yeah.
The Heat and the Grizzlies have talked about Ja Morant. I know that for sure. I don't know that those conversations have been super engaging lately. I think the Heat have kept tabs on Ja Morant, and I don't think that they've closed the door altogether on Ja Morant. And I don't know that right now it's the dream scenario for some people of Giannis and Morant. I almost wonder if it's, if not Giannis, then Morant at this point. But I know that the Heat have not shut the door completely on acquiring Ja Morant before the trade deadline, especially given what the price might be at this point, which is, again, it might not be very high.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I like the idea of Morant, but I'm not in love with it. And it's not even about the off the court concerns, which I mean, they are valid. There was a point there where, again, he was one of the top players in the league, and everything that's happened, whether it's due to injury or the in between the ear stuff, if that's what the reporting has kind of led you to believe, those are valid concerns about where he's at and what he's going to be able to continue to be in this league. Where it almost feels to the point we're talking about a player who's like well past his prime and you know is already aged out of the league or something along those lines. And when that's far from the case, like he's still a young player and still just a couple of years removed from being one of the top players in the league. And I'm still concerned about Miami leaning into that. Like it's because there's work to be done. This isn't a player who kind of slides over immediately the way a guy like Giannis does. You acquire Giannis, and again, regardless of fit or whoever's surrounding him on the roster, although there are concerns for that as well, you know he's going to produce. Mm-hmm. He's just been that good for, I don't know, the bulk of his career. And so that's something you can bank on a lot more easily. But to acquire Ja is kind of a gamble and an expensive one because he does come with an incredible contract. And so you have to hope that the Heat have done their due diligence and have this incredible faith if they make the move for Morant. I'm just trying to figure out whether or not the idea is that if the Heat acquired Morant, it would be because they have faith in his ability to bounce back and be that kind of player. But I don't want them to pivot from Giannis and say, all right, well, let's just get something done. And it almost feels like the idea of pairing Morant has to come with Giannis on this roster, or else what's the point? I don't see the need. If you swing and miss on Giannis, then I don't know what the point is of acquiring Morant. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be the kind of move that helps this team in the short term or long term.
I'm going to put, I mostly agree with what you're saying. I'm going to push back on two things though.
Okay.
I don't think that you acquire Morant because you have faith that you can maximize him. Because if the question is, do you only trade for Ja Morant if you're sure that you can maximize his potential? If that's the case, then you're not trading for Ja Morant because you can't be sure. You have no idea. You don't know how his body's going to hold up, and you don't know how he's going to, be in Miami. You just don't know. So if that's the question, then you're not trading for Ja Morant. Now, so it's all on a sliding scale, right? To me, I don't think you acquire Ja Morant because you have faith in what he can become. I think you acquire Ja Morant because it costs basically nothing because it's all risk reward, right? And if the risk is a couple of expiring contracts that players we're not going to bring back anyway, and there's an opportunity cost and there's a money element a part of this. Sure. But put that aside for a second. Again, if the cost is basically in terms of the trade a couple of expiring contracts, no draft capital, then that's when we start talking about the risk reward part of it, where the risk is so low and the reward is guy who was an all NBA player a couple of years ago, right? Who's still, young and all these things, hasn't had a major surgery or a major injury, a lot of nagging stuff, but nothing major. And, in terms of the dip in production, there's a lot going on right now in Memphis in terms of the coaching and the firings and stuff like that. I do believe, does anybody really think that Ja Morant would get worse in Miami? No. I think everybody expects a little bit of a bump. If not, maybe he doesn't reach, his potential or all NBA ceiling again. But I think most people would be like, yeah, he'll probably be better in Miami than he's been over the last year and a half in Memphis, whatever that looks like. So that's the first thing. And then I already forgot the second thing. But I do think that, I don't think you pivot from Giannis just to get something done and then get Ja Morant. And I'm not sure that they're mutually exclusive at all. But I do, if Giannis gets traded somewhere else and you still have time before the buzzer, I do wonder if at that point, that's when Miami makes the move. It's like a post pivot, right? You're not pivoting before Giannis gets traded because you're just, we got to do something and we're frustrated with the lack of movement on the Milwaukee front. It's,
well, that's what I'm saying.
Well, we're not getting Giannis. So we didn't get Giannis. We swung and missed on Giannis. Let's do something. Let's go get Ja. I would not count that out.
That doesn't feel like how Miami operates.
You're right.
They get their guy, and if they don't, I don't know that they're like, okay, well, let's just settle, which is kind of how it feels.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. I think it would be out of character, but I wouldn't rule it out either.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
Sure. All right. Last thing here, I guess we'll talk about the latest on Giannis here. Basically, no news. And I think at this point, David, no news is good news. Would you agree with that?
Yes. I think it kind of indicates that parties are talking behind the scenes, and because there are so many different parts being moved around, it does feel like the move for Giannis is probably going to be a much more simplified one, but it's going to take lots of teams being involved in order to move other players and or assets in order to land the ideal thing. You'll probably hear about it. Well, on the surface, it'll seem like Giannis to blank team. It'll have to include that team that's getting Giannis probably moving another player or players or picks somewhere else to kind of reroute things a little bit in order to incorporate a player like Giannis. It just doesn't feel like you don't get a 1-for-1 trade. This is not how it's going to work out.
Yeah. According to Brian Windhorst, the Heat have the offer out there. We talked about what the offer is. It's young players and draft picks. It's the 2 first-round picks that Miami can offer, 2030, 2032. We know the young players that are most likely involved, Kel'el Ware certainly being one of them. That offer is on the table for the Milwaukee Bucks to take right now. I think right now the Bucks are just saying, okay, cool. We'll see. We'll get back to you. We have a little bit more time here. We'll get back to you. We'll let you know what we decide. And obviously, there's the Giannis part of this. If Giannis goes to the Milwaukee Bucks and says, which all indications, by the way, is that we can, the semantics about is this a trade demand or not? Does he have a list of preferred destinations, or is it just teams that he's open to? Whatever, dude. I don't really care. The one thing we do know is that Giannis hasn't actually gone to the Bucks front office, or at least we don't think this has happened, where he's gone to the Bucks front office and said, trade me before the deadline. Let's get this thing done. You
read his interview with Eric Nehm?
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, exactly. It sounds like he's just sort of letting them figure it out. I want
to win, and I ain't going to win here kind of thing.
Right.
As much as I want to stay with Milwaukee, let's get something done because you're not getting it done here sort of thing.
It does sound like, though, he's not holding their feet to the fire to get it done before Thursday. It's basically, hey, before Thursday, great. If not, then in the summer, maybe. Which, we'll see, right? We'll see. If Giannis, but we're ticking down to the end here. Maybe there's still time for Giannis to say, hey, get something done. And if that's the case, maybe he is able to apply some pressure on the Milwaukee Bucks front office. Not to say that the Bucks need that pressure to get something done. Maybe they ultimately say, you know what, this package is good enough. We feel good about it. But we'll see. The Miami Heat, they have the offer into Milwaukee. It's up to the Bucks to figure it out. Sounds like Minnesota is making moves. Maybe there's other teams in the league making moves. Giannis could maybe tilt the scale in one direction or the other if he really wanted to put his thumb down. All of it TBD. All of it we'll be talking about, of course, as we continue here on Locked On Heat. That'll do it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in today to Locked On Heat. Make sure you stay tuned in. Hit that subscribe button, like the videos, comment, let us know what you think here on YouTube. Make sure you also subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast feed. Make sure to follow Locked On Heat on Instagram, TikTok, and X, where we also will have episode updates as we go on. And of course, the Everydayer Club. It's built for you. Get Locked On Heat ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more intel. Head to lockedonheat.supercast.com to join the club. We'll talk to you soon.